As part of We the People, celebrating 250 years, here's This Day in History.
And we are continuing the party here for America's 250th birthday. We are sharing our We the People series, people, places, and things of the past that have shaped our country into what it is today. And we have a people part of that story, one of the presidents of the United States.
On this day, August 17th, 1998, President Bill Clinton became the first sitting president to testify before the Office of Independent Counsel as the subject of a grand jury investigation. The testimony came after a 4-year investigation into Clinton and his wife Hillary's alleged involvement in several scandals, including accusations of sexual harassment, potentially illegal real estate deals, and suspected cronyism involved in the firing of White House travel agency personnel. The independent prosecutor then uncovered an affair between Clinton and a White House intern, Monica Lewinsky. Clinton would initially deny the affair, but would later admit to it live on TV when he addressed the nation. Revelations from the investigation sparked a battle in Congress over whether or not to impeach Clinton. While Democrats favored censure, Republicans called loudly for impeachment, claiming Clinton was unfit to lead the country. In December of 1998, the House of Representatives voted to impeach the president, but Clinton was acquitted after a 5-week trial in the Senate. That's This Day in History for August 17th.
I think he's one of 3 presidents to be impeached. Clinton, Trump, and I don't know the third, but I think there's another one somewhere.
Johnson.
Johnson, okay. Yeah, Clinton, a polarizing figure. The 90s, a time of economic prosperity for the United States, but also those personal decisions going on behind the scenes didn't really endear him to a lot of the American public there.
That is true.
Charlie doesn't want to say much about this one.
Well, I could say a lot of things.
Elena, we'll send it over to you.